The cycle of reincarnation was never truly broken, it merely evolved. When Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha settled their cosmic feud in the Valley of the End, the spirits of Asura and Indra Ōtsutsuki found a momentary respite. But souls bound by a millennium of conflict and a desperate yearning for peace do not simply fade into nothingness. They drift through the ethereal tides of the multiverse, waiting for vessels that resonate with their fundamental nature. In a world where 80% of the population possess superhuman abilities known as quirks, the soul of Indra Ōtsutsuki, the progenitor of ninjutsu, a genius cursed by his own solitary pursuit of power, found a boy named Izuku Midoriya. At 4 years old, Izuku was diagnosed as quirkless. The extra joint in his pinky toe was the undeniable biological proof. His dreams of becoming a hero like All Might shattered in the cold, sterile office of the pediatrician. His mother, Inko, wept, apologizing profusely as if she had committed a grave sin. Izuku sat frozen in his All Might onesie, the world turning gray. But deeply buried within the boy's spiritual network, an ancient, dormant energy stirred. Chakra, a concept alien to this modern, mutated world, began to uncoil. The awakening happened a week later. Katsuki Bakugo, Izuku's childhood friend turned tormentor, pushed him into the dirt of a local park. Little explosions popped in Katsuki's palms, a manifestation of his newly awakened, powerful quirk. You're useless, Deku. Katsuki sneered, surrounded by their laughing peers. A quirkless nobody. Izuku looked down at the dirt, tears pricking his eyes. He felt a profound sense of helplessness. But as Katsuki raised his hand to deliver a searing blow, a foreign sensation flooded Izuku's veins. It was cold, sharp, and intensely ancient. A voice, echoing not in his ears but in his very soul, whispered with an aristocrat's disdain. Why do you bow to this weakling? Power is the only absolute. Stand up, Izuku gasped. He didn't know who was speaking, but the sheer force of the will behind those words forced his head up. When Izuku opened his eyes, the world had changed. Time seemed to drag. He could see the micro-movements of Katsuki's muscles, the flow of oxygen igniting the nitroglycerin sweat on his palms, and Katsuki stopped dead in his tracks. The explosive boy gasped, stumbling backward as if he had seen a ghost. Izuku's normally vibrant green eyes had bled into a piercing, luminous crimson. A single, black tomo spun lazily around the pupil of each eye. The Sharingan had awakened. What's wrong with your eyes? Katsuki yelled, fear lacing his usually arrogant tone. Izuku didn't answer. He couldn't. His mind was being flooded with fragmented memories, hand seals, towering avatars of purple energy, a brother bathed in golden light, and a father whose eyes bore concentric ripples. Izuku collapsed, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of Indra Ōtsutsuki's legacy. The doctor's subsequent reevaluation was a media circus in the Midoriya household. They classified his quirk as an extremely rare, late-blooming mutation and named it Ocular Phantasm. The doctors theorized it allowed him enhanced perception and minor hypnotic abilities. They had no idea that Izuku possessed a separate circulatory system for a mystical energy called chakra. Growing up, Izuku was fundamentally changed. The bubbly, overly emotional boy was tempered by the ancient spirit residing within him. He was still Izuku. He still desperately wanted to save people with a smile. He still analyzed pro-heroes in his notebooks. But a cold, pragmatic logic now shared space with his idealism. He trained in secret. Driven by the whisperings of the spirit he learned to call Indra, Izuku discovered he could manipulate elements. He learned to breathe fire by channeling chakra to his lungs. He learned to coat his hands in crackling lightning. He honed his body into a weapon, his taijutsu movements sharp, efficient, and lethal. Katsuki Bakugo grew to hate and fear him. The dynamic of middle school was entirely disrupted. Izuku didn't flinch when Katsuki yelled. He simply stared back with calm, emerald eyes that Katsuki knew could turn a demonic red in an instant. There was an aura around Izuku, an oppressive, heavy gravity that demanded respect. You are coddling them, Indra's voice would echo in Izuku's mind as they sat in class. They are sheep. You have the power to rule them, to enforce a perfect peace. Why do you insist on this trivial hero masquerade? Because rule by fear isn't peace, Izuku would mentally reply, his iron will clashing against the demigod's ancient resentment. You tried that. It brought you nothing but centuries of war against your brother. I won't repeat your mistakes. I will use your power to protect. Indra would usually scoff, retreating into the recesses of Izuku's mind, but the progenitor could not deny the boy's indomitable spirit. The true test of their symbiotic existence came during the sludge villain incident. Izuku was walking home from school when he heard the explosions. Pushing through the crowd, he saw Katsuki trapped within a suffocating mass of sentient sludge. The pro-heroes, Death Arms, Empty Lady, Kamui Woods, stood on the sidelines, citing bad matchups and waiting for someone with a suitable quirk. Izuku's blood boiled. Weakness, Indra hissed. They call themselves guardians, yet they cower. Show them true power. For once, Izuku agreed. He didn't recklessly sprint forward with his backpack. He stepped past the police barricade with a slow, deliberate stride. Hey kid! Get back here! Death Arms shouted. Izuku ignored him. He closed his eyes, and when they snapped open, the emerald was gone, replaced by brilliant crimson with 3 fully matured, spinning tomo. The sludge villain paused, sensing a terrifying shift in the atmosphere. Izuku raised his hands, his fingers flying through a blur of motions that no one could comprehend. Tiger, boar, ox, dog, snake, water style, severing wave. A highly pressurized jet of water erupted from Izuku's mouth, moving with the speed and precision of a laser beam. It sliced directly through the sludge villain's viscous body, narrowly missing Katsuki. The villain shrieked in agony as his fluid form lost its cohesion. Before the villain could reform, Izuku vanished. He moved faster than the pro-heroes could track, utilizing the body flicker technique. He reappeared directly in front of Katsuki. Izuku's left hand was engulfed in a concentrated sphere of raw, chirping lightning, the Chidori. With a surgical strike, Izuku thrust his lightning-clad hand into the core of the sludge, sending a paralyzing shockwave through the villain's nervous system. The sludge completely liquefied, dropping a coughing Katsuki to the pavement. The alley was dead silent, save for the crackling of residual lightning around Izuku's fingers. The pro-heroes stared in awe and mild terror. From the back of the crowd, A skeletal blond man with sunken blue eyes watched the boy, his heart pounding against his ribs. Toshinori Yagi, All Might, had just witnessed a display of power, precision, and terrifying grace. When All Might later approached Shizuku, offering the quirk one for all, the conversation went drastically differently than it might have in another universe. Young man, you possess a power that rivals my own in its potential, All Might said, coughing into his hand. But I also saw a darkness in your eyes. A coldness. Why do you want to be a hero? Izuku looked at the setting sun, his eyes fading back to green. There is a voice in my head, All Might. It tells me that the only way to achieve peace is absolute control. It tells me that humanity is weak and needs to be subjugated for its own good. All Might tensed, ready to apprehend the boy if necessary. But I know he's wrong, Izuku continued softly. I want to be a hero because I want to prove to him, and to myself, that true strength is compassionate. I want to save people with a smile so that they never have to feel the fear of being weak. I don't need your quirk, All Might. But I would be honored if you would guide me so I don't lose myself to the dark. Toshinori smiled, placing a heavy hand on Izuku's shoulder. I accept, Izuku Midoriya. Let us forge your path together. 10 months later, the UA High School entrance exam took place. Izuku stepped into the foe's city of ground beta with a calm demeanor. While the other applicants scrambled, panicked, and shouted, Izuku merely breathed. When President Mike yelled for them to start, Izuku didn't run. He channeled chakra to his feet and launched himself onto the roof of a nearby building, bounding across the skyline like a phantom. The mechanical villains never stood a chance. Izuku didn't even use his ninjutsu for the 1 and 2 pointers. He dismantled them with sheer taijutsu, using the Sharingan to predict their robotic algorithms, striking their weak joints and exposed wiring. In the observation room, the teachers watched in stunned silence. Who is that kid? Snipe asked, leaning closer to the monitors. His movements, they aren't those of a brawler. He's an assassin. A ninja. Izuku Midoriya, Principal Niza hummed, sipping his tea. Quirk, ocular phantasm and energy manipulation. Though, it seems the registry drastically understated his capabilities. Shota Aizawa, Eraserhead, narrowed his tired eyes. His power is incredible, but look at his posture. He's not struggling. He's bored. It's almost arrogant. Down in the arena, the ground shook as the zero-pointer was deployed. The colossal machine towered over the buildings, casting a shadow of doom over the applicants. The students screamed, fleeing in terror. Izuku turned to leave as well. There were no points to be gained here. But a cry for help stopped him. A girl with auburn hair, Uraraka, he recalled, was trapped under a slab of rubble. Leave her, Indra commanded, his voice cold and imperious. She was foolish enough to get caught. Survival of the fittest is the law of the world. Conserve your energy. Izuku stopped. He clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. I am not you, Indra, Izuku thought fiercely. I am a hero. Izuku spun around and dashed toward the Colossus. The zero-pointer raised a massive fist, preparing to crush Uraraka and the street she lay upon. Izuku skidded to a halt in front of her. His eyes flared, the 3 tomos spinning so fast they blurred into a solid red ring. Chakra, dense and malicious, erupted from Izuku's body. It wasn't the clean blue chakra he normally used. This chakra was a deep, royal purple. To the absolute shock of everyone watching, ethereal, glowing purple ribs materialized around Izuku and Uraraka. The metal fist of the zero-pointer crashed down upon the energy construct with the force of a meteor. The ground shattered. Dust billowed into the air. But as the smoke cleared, the camera feeds revealed Izuku standing completely unharmed, flanked by the glowing ribcage of the Susanoo. Izuku looked up at the robot. He raised his right arm, and the purple energy mirrored his movement, forming a colossal, skeletal arm. With a terrifying roar, Izuku swept his arm upward. The Susanoo's arm slammed into the robot's chin, the sheer kinetic force utterly decapitating the zero-pointer. The giant head flew backward, crashing into the foe's city, while the body slumped over, sparking and dead. Izuku released the technique, gasping for breath, clutching his left eye. The Susanoo was taxing, even for him. He turned to Uraraka, offering her a hand, his eyes back to a soft, comforting green. Are you okay? He asked, forcing a gentle smile. Uraraka could only nod, completely starstruck. Izuku was placed in Class 1A, quickly establishing himself as an anomaly. He was polite, intensely studious, and friendly, yet in combat training, he possessed a ruthlessness that terrified his classmates. He easily bested Todoroki's ice with masterful fire-style techniques, and he matched Bakugo's ferocity with chilling calmness. But the true crucible awaited at the unforeseen simulation joint, USJ. When the League of Villains invaded, bypassing the school's security, Izuku knew immediately that this was a coordinated assassination attempt. The villains scattered the students. Izuku, along with Tsuyu and Mineta, found themselves in the shipwreck zone. Izuku dispatched the aquatic villains with a wide-area lightning release, electrocuting the water with precise voltage control so as not to kill them, but ensuring they wouldn't wake for days. Rushing back to the central plaza, Izuku witnessed a nightmare. Aizawa was pinned to the ground by a hulking, brain-exposed monstrosity, the Noma. The creature had just snapped Aizawa's arm like a twig and was raising its fist to crush the teacher's skull. A pale, hand-covered villain, Tamura Shigaraki, was laughing. Izuku didn't think. He acted. He crossed the plaza in a heartbeat, kicking the Noma squarely in the face. The blow had enough force to shatter a bank vault, but the Noma barely flinched. The beast swung a backhand that sent Izuku hurtling through the air, crashing into the concrete stairs. Izuku coughed up blood, his vision swimming. Shock absorption, he realized. And super strength. You cannot beat this thing with parlor tricks, Indra's voice echoed, no longer whispering, but resounding like a war drum. It is an abomination. A mindless beast of pure flesh. You must unlock the deeper power. You must feel the pain of the world and harness it. Izuku struggled to his feet. He looked at Aizawa, bleeding out. He looked at his classmates, terrified and hiding. He remembered his mother's tears, the cruelty of society toward the weak, and suddenly he felt a profound, overwhelming grief, not just his own, but centuries of sorrow inherited from Indra. The sorrow of a brother betrayed, of a father's rejection, of a world constantly at war with itself. Izuku screamed. It was a guttural, heart-wrenching sound. Blood ran like a tear down his left cheek. His eyes underwent a violent metamorphosis. The three tomo merged, shifting into a complex, intricate pattern, a spiral of 3 interlocking triangles. The Mangekyo Sharingan had awakened. What is that brat doing? Shigaraki hissed, stepping back as the air pressure in the USJ suddenly plummeted. The air grew heavy, almost difficult to breathe. Izuku locked eyes with the Noma, Amaterasu. Black flames erupted spontaneously on the Noma's right shoulder. The creature roared, a sound of genuine agony. The flames of Amaterasu, which would not extinguish until their target was reduced to ash, began to consume the beast's flesh. The Noma tore at its own shoulder, its super regeneration fighting a losing battle against the inextinguishable fire. Noma! Kill him! Shigaraki screeched. The beast charged Izuku, half its body engulfed in black fire. Izuku didn't flinch. He let the purple chakra explode from his body. This time, it wasn't just a ribcage. Bone knit with sinew and muscle, forming a massive, half-body skeletal warrior cloaked in spectral armor. The Susanoo materialized in all its terrifying, demonic glory, wielding a massive chakra blade. The Noma crashed into the Susanoo's shield, the shockwave shattering the glass dome of the USJ and knocking the remaining villains off their feet. Inside the safety of the ethereal avatar, Izuku closed his eyes and ventured into his own mindscape. He stood in a vast, dark void. Before him stood Indra Ōtsutsuki, tall, aristocratic, his face painted with traditional markings, his Mangekyo spinning. You finally embraced the darkness, Indra said, his voice laced with dark satisfaction.